So I'll just talk through it. So last time I talked, it was about how do you greet a Buddha when you see him on the road. And the teacher said, without using silence and without using speech, how will you answer? And I was making the point that as creators, we create our reality. This is maybe it's the point I'm going to say I made may be different than the point than you heard last time, because I've been thinking about it, and so it may be a little different. But anyway, I wanted to re-summarize it, that as creators, we create our reality. There's no separation between us and the reality. Like, it's all one, and we are creating, co-creating reality. And so we create the Buddhas in front of us, right? How do you greet a Buddha that you meet on the road? Well, you see everyone you meet on the road as Buddha, and then everyone you meet is Buddha. We create that, right? And so for us to be in the right place, to be able to see you as Buddha, means that I have to do work on myself to see the Buddha that I am. And so so I become Buddha, and then I see Buddha, and then you become Buddha, right? So we're like, it's this flow of creation. And that was really just what I wanted to reiterate from that talk. I didn't reinforce that enough, that us as creators, we practice to be in the right place so that we create we create everybody that we encounter as Buddha. And then we're all a bunch of Buddhas walking around creating more Buddhas, if we can do that. And so, yeah, there's a responsibility. It's not like I just bump into somebody and they go, oh, they're so amazing, and I just bow to them, and because I realize they're in such a special place. That's not how meeting a Buddha on the road is. It's, I am Buddha, I see you as Buddha, and then you become Buddha for me. And so with that in mind, it's a bit of a segue to Mother's Day, right? How when you meet a mother along in your path, without speech and without silence, how will you greet them? And so the principle is the same. It's the same principle, that we are all mothers. We are all mother. That motherhood is not an adjective as much as it is a verb. It's doing. Being a mother, the mother energy is the energy of caretaking, of supporting, of sustaining. And we all have that, right? The world is the mother. And so, right? So I certainly appreciate mothers. So anyone who's a mother, I have great appreciation in the relative sense. I have great appreciation for my mother. My mother died when I was 21. And so, yeah, it's been a long time that I haven't been able to talk with her personally, but I still connect with her spirit. And I still feel a lot of the great qualities that I have as a person come from her. And so, yeah, there's a deep appreciation and gratitude for her and for all mothers. Man, right? Seeing the birthing process was just, I could not believe it. I was like, this is the most crazy, intense thing. I can't believe people do this every day. People are having babies every day. It's such a harrowing experience. Gosh, it's terrifying. And yet it's the simplest thing that happens, most natural thing that happens every day. Unbelievable that the women in particular who go through that have that courage to step up and take that on. It's painful and scary, and yet can be very rewarding, of course. So yeah, great appreciation to the mothers out there. And in the relative sense, no pun intended. So let me, let's see. Let's see. All right, the Book of Householder Koans. There's a section on children, right? Raising children is the unit or section of the book with all these different koans in there. And this one in particular that was inspiring to me, it's called The Calling Child. As in a child that's calling for you. Mom. The calling child. Each of us has our own position. Each of us has our work. The great miracle is not stumbling out of bed when my child calls, but getting horizontal when it's time to sleep and vertical when I get up. Koan. The koan is, why do you jump up in the middle of the night when your child calls out? Reflection. There are so many things we do without planning ahead of time. In fact, the great majority of our actions don't require any thinking at all. If the left foot moves forward, the right one will probably follow without any consultation between them. If a car suddenly cuts me off, my foot will usually hit the brakes automatically. I sometimes call these actions no-brainers because we don't have to think about what to do. Similarly, our digestive system works without orders from us, etc. So what happens when your young child suddenly calls out in the middle of the night? You probably jump out of bed to see what's wrong. You don't pause to ask whether you should do this, whether you're not too tired, or how you will get up in the morning to go to work. Later, you might feel your exhaustion and wonder how you'll make it through the day, but the moment you hear that sudden cry, you jump out of bed. We're part of a flow of call and response. When we follow that flow in a natural and smooth way, unhindered, we're not fighting our thoughts or our feelings. We're not fighting ourselves. We're just doing what's in front of us without distraction. So that's the essence of that story. You know, there's several koans that kind of talk about this. I can't recall all of them well right now. But it's just the idea of why do you, from the monk's perspective, it's why do you put on your robes at the sound of a bell? What's the purpose of our practice? Why did Bodhidharma come to the West? It's a why. It's a why question. It's a why koan. And so what they're suggesting here is that we just do. We I think the point is that like analyzing it and explaining it and second guessing it is not misses the point. The point is to be who we are. Um, and so, the simple practice, like I said, the birth process is terrifying, but it puts us on another level. There's another level of responsibility and accountability. That's a maturing process. It's a real maturing process. Girls and women, I think, tend to be more mature on average than guys. And forgive me if I don't know, not really trying to be political or pay too close attention to how I'm referring to pronouns. I could be more sensitive probably. So I'm talking kind of in stereotypes a bit. But there's a difference between the level of maturity on the average of people who've had a child. For me, it was incredible maturing experience. I'm still very immature, but I grew up a lot having Zoe and having to be, accountable for her life and responsible for her life. And I was just the father, right? The mother was really like on it, like had to be on it every day, just really doing above and beyond. So there's this level of practice that we're forced into. And I'm using, having a child as a bit of a metaphor for all of us to step up in our practice, to be caretakers for our own lives, and then caretakers for the people around us, and the caretakers for the world and for the planet. And so, I think where I'm heading here is that so there's a natural instinct, right? Oh, there's a fire. I'm going to do something. I may not be the one to rush into the building, but I may be the one who jumps out of bed and makes a phone call, or at least goes and tries to get somebody else to help, or a car crash or whatever. If somebody falls down next to us, we're going to lean over and be the one to help them up. We all have natural instincts for compassion, right? That's our natural state, is compassion. Unless we're too distracted or too deluded to be able to be present for that. But our natural state is to be compassionate and to care and to reach out and help others. And mothers really have a crash course in this when they become responsible for a baby that's literally crying now all the time, unless they're satisfied, unless they have the care they need. And even then, crying and more crying can be very stressful. It's a crash course in stepping up our level of responsibility. And certainly not to say that people can't achieve this without having a child, right? It's not like having a child is the only way to get this. I'm just saying that it's a guaranteed way to get this. If you do have a child, it will create this pressure to be a caretaker, right? And so a baby cries a lot. Those of us who don't have children may not have that practice. If a baby's crying, yeah, we would like to think that we would hop up and be of service and just help. But not necessarily. And then also there's terrible examples of mothers. A friend of mine on Facebook, who's a practitioner, she said, I'm turning Facebook off for a few days because it's too painful for me to see everybody posting about how great their mother is and how much they love them. My mother was horrible and abusive, and I never want to be like her, and I don't want to hear anything about it. So there's nothing inherent about being a mother that's good and caretaking, right? So it's all relative to where we are and where we're at. So we can accomplish the mother path without having children, and we can have children and not accomplish the mother path. And so with that in mind, what I'm suggesting for everybody is to consider this practice of, when you see a mother along the path, how will you greet them without silence, without speech? And so what that takes is getting in touch with this this deeper level of connection that we all share, that we all have mother energy. Mother energy is universal. And for us to be able to recognize that in ourselves, how am I caretaking for myself? Right? The child that's crying in the night is the same voice in my head that's saying, oh, you're not good enough. Or, oh, you're too stressed out. Or you need help. That voice in our own head, how are we taking care of that? How are we jumping out of bed to rush to take care of ourselves in all the ways that we need? How, when our friend may call and say something rude, right? That's the baby crying in the night. How can those around us who are hurting and being hurtful, how are we taking care of them? Geez, right? I became a teacher partially to make a difference in this world. I'm like, whoa, the world's going, it's gonna get crazy here in a few more decades. How can I intervene at some point and try to make a difference for those that are creating our future? And right, so I do try. It's a practice for me to try to take care of kids and help them to develop their future, help to develop their voices and intentions. And I'm not that great of a teacher. I'm really not. I'm okay, but I'm not that great. There's some really good teachers. There's a lot of great teachers that I'm just still so amazed with, right? So that energy, they're caretakers, they are mothers. The men and the women and the transgender teachers, they're all mother. And so how are you taking care of how are you carrying the mother energy? How are you manifesting mother energy in your life to be a caretaker for yourself and for others and for the planet ultimately? So it's a question, right? It's a question and it's a practice. A couple of quotes that I was able to download. Being a mother is an attitude, not a biological relation. Who said that? I don't even see who says that. You're right. So that's a point, right? It's an attitude. Of course, on Mother's Day, we want to celebrate mothers in particular. And we want to cultivate this attitude of caretaking. Just like when we see a Buddha on the road, it's because we are Buddha and we see them as Buddha. Even before we see them as Buddha. And so see ourselves as mother and see the world as our child. Another quote: "The art of mothering is to teach the art of living to children." And so the art of living, right, is something we can teach the world. It's how we live. How are we living? And right, if we have our intention, if we're creating our reality with our intention, that's an art just as much as a science. So it's a practice. How are we living? And how are we caretaking our lives to show others how to live? Children, in the sense that everybody's a child. Mother is a verb. It's something you do, not just who you are. Okay. Right, and so connecting that the crying child, right, calling for help. If we can continually show up in our lives to those around us with the attitude of how can I help you? How can I help you? How can I help here? I think that's the essence of what it comes down to. And so I'll just finish by reading a bit more of this, the koan. Why do you get up at the sound of your baby? Why do you go to the door at the sound of the doorbell? Why do you put your coat on in winter? Why do you vow to save all beings? Okay. And so we can sit with this, right? It's a practice. It's a koan. Why do we vow? It's a why koan, right? It's a life koan of why, which is different than who or what. And so we can sit with this in our practice. We sit with why. Why do I do this? Why do I vow? Why do I act this way? Why do I care? So these are powerful questions to sit with. So I encourage that. I encourage you all to sit with some of these questions in your practice. And see yourselves as mother. So that's all I got for today. Thank you all for listening and your patience.